The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 204. It was another stellar season for Michigan softball, but there won't be a trip to the College World Series this week. And football grabs another 2 4-star commits and has a prized 5-star decommit. That and more on this week's show. This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. It's late May and the athletic scene is slowing down around campus. Spring sports are wrapping up, and soon Michigan football players will report back to campus to begin summer workouts. One season that never ends is football recruiting. Today on our Michigan Gameday segment, we get our May recruiting fix. Coming up is recruiting analyst Ace Anbender from MGoBlog with this month's update, so please stick around for that. First, a look at Wolverine News and Notes to get things started this week. Courtney Cenas hit a 2-run walk-off home run to give number 3 Florida State a 4-2 win over the number 13 ranked University of Michigan softball team in the decisive Game 3 of the Tallahassee Super Regional on Friday at Joanne Graff Field. The loss ends the season for the Maize and Blue. Earlier in the day, the Seminoles won Game 2 of the Super Regional 6-0 to force a third game in the best-of-3 series. The Wolverines finished 2014 with a magnificent 47-15 record and won their 7th consecutive Big Ten championship. So congratulations to Coach Carol Hutchins and her team for another fantastic season that fell just short in the Super Regionals. Well, we have 6 verbals so far in the football class of 2015 and another high-level decommit in the last week. Joining me with our May recruiting update is MGoBlog recruiting analyst and staff writer Ace Anbender. That's next here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. With us on our Michigan Game Day segment as we do our May recruiting update is Ace Anbender, staff writer and recruiting analyst at MGoBlog. Great to have you back on the show, Ace.
Thanks as always for having me on.
As we know, the recruiting season goes on and on right now. A lot of news, not a lot for Michigan, but there is a lot of recruiting news across the college landscape. Let's start, Ace, with a decommit. Defensive back Sean Crawford from Lakewood, Ohio, St. Edwards, decommitted last week. Surprise or not a surprise?
As soon as he started looking around at visits, this is the second time he's done that. He's been sort of interested in Notre Dame since the get-go, but didn't get an offer from them by the time he committed to Michigan. But that initially was his school of choice. So as soon as he started looking, and it appeared to be pretty serious this time, when you get a commit who's been looking to take visits a couple different times during their recruitment, and there's still several months until signing day, it's not a huge surprise, I would say, when they decommit. It's certainly disappointing with a guy like Crawford, since he's really an excellent prospect and fit into this class very, very well, but I can't say it came as a surprise once he started talking about the potential for visiting Notre Dame and Ohio State, even though the Ohio State visit hasn't happened.
And according to reports that I read, Ace, Sean Crawford really never offered an explanation or even talked to Coach Hoke or his staff before he made the decision. Is that what you hear?
There's been some conflicting reports about that. It appears that at some point he did, in fact, get in touch with the coaches and at least considered himself still a Michigan commit. It does seem like either Hoke's policy on taking visits as a commit wasn't communicated properly, or Crawford's family just didn't really agree with it very much once it came down to it, because they appeared to take issue with commits not being able to take visits and still being considered a commit. So I think that he did stay in touch with the coaches throughout this process, but I don't think their line of communication was necessarily that strong, and eventually it seemed best for all parties involved that the decommitment happened, because it was clear that he was looking around, and it was clear that the coaches didn't want to sit there while that was going on, considering the precedent they'd set, and the fact that there have been some recruits who were upset in the past about the way that commitment visits were handled, and thinking that there may have been some sort of double standard. And so once you have that starting to happen, you've really got to kind of keep a hard and fast line about what your policy is. And with Crawford taking a visit to Notre Dame, that was it. As soon as he did that, I think the coaches no longer considered him a commitment.
And you see this happening all over the landscape in college football where these kids, I mean, I think Crawford committed in 2013 when he was a sophomore. So you're seeing it happen more often. Do you think Coach Hoke is going to have to rethink his position if you visit somewhere you're off the list?
I actually think it's a pretty smart policy as long as you make it very, very clear up front, because, like you said, this happens a decent amount, and it does protect the school pretty well from having a late slew of decommitments of guys who finally wait around and then look around at other schools long enough while still holding a spot, and then decide towards the end that another place suits them better. It's a good way to protect yourself from kind of getting left in the lurch on signing day, but he's shown some flexibility with it, where prospects are more upfront with the coaches about their intentions, they might be able to at least still be heavily recruited by the coaches after they take visits. I would expect Michigan still goes after Sean Crawford, although it seems like it's pretty imminent that he's going to end up at Notre Dame. But I think it's tough, because you're either going to deal with some early commitments and decommitments kind of going on towards the beginning of the cycle if you have a policy like this, or you're going to end up dealing with the occasional surprise late decommitment if you don't have a policy in place like this. So there isn't really a great answer for these coaches right now, and as you can tell, because some coaches are perfectly fine letting their players take visits wherever while they're committed, as long as they still say they're committed, and some coaches take the exact opposite tack. So I personally think that it's smart to keep commits from taking visits to other schools while still holding a spot in the class. If a recruit's looking around, then the coaches should at least be able to look around at other players at that position too, just in case. I don't really see the big problem with that, but it's something that I think the coaches somewhat take on a case-by-case basis, even though people think there's this hard and fast policy, and then so much of it goes on behind the scenes that I still don't think people have a really good grasp on how exactly the coaches are going about all of this. But considering how well they retained the players that they pulled in the 2012 and 2013 classes, I'd say that makes a relatively strong argument for the way the coaches are going about the way they're doing things, because they're doing it to make sure that nobody leaves, both before and after they get on campus, and I think that's worked pretty well so far.
Ace, let's talk about the two most recent commits, starting with Darren Kirkland Jr., widely regarded a best player in Indiana. Your take on him?
He's an excellent-looking middle linebacker prospect, and really when you look at him, a lot of times at the high school level, especially with linebackers, you get guys where you tell them they're going to play one of the linebacker positions, you get them on campus, and you sort of figure it out from there. With Kirkland, he is very much a middle linebacker. He's got that kind of stout build. He's excellent against the run. That's really the main thing you see in all of his scouting reports is he's got, and also on his film, is he's got these remarkable instincts where as soon as the play is happening, he's diagnosing the play and he's getting to the football, and he does so quickly. He's got great closing speed. And he's actually, the questions about him were more how well he'd be able to do in coverage, and he keeps showing up to camps and performing really well in these settings that do not highlight his strengths, because you're not playing run defense at a 7-on-7 camp. And he's been in any passing drills either, so he's been doing impressive work on the camp circuit. His film is impressive. He fits in at middle linebacker, and Michigan last year had a pretty nice linebacker haul, but they didn't have a guy necessarily. Michael Fern should slot in at middle linebacker. We'll see. They're talking about Noah Furbush fitting in there, although I'm skeptical because the guy's practically a defensive end. But Kirkland is a guy who you can slot him into one position and be confident moving forward that he's going to stick there, and that's always nice to have.
And you're right, he looks like a natural-born middle linebacker. If his stats are accurate, 6'1", 233 pounds. I mean, if you see a picture of him, the kid looks really chiseled, already a four-star. He looks like the kind of kid that could play up in the 245 to 250 range.
Absolutely, and that is ideal for playing in that middle spot. I mean, you have guys come out of high school where you're, at least when Michigan was playing in the 4-3 under, where you kind of went, he might be a middle, or we might just slide him over to the weak side if he doesn't grow enough. Kirkland's got the frame where there's no question he's gonna grow into that Mike linebacker size.
Well, another one of our most recent commits is a name here in Metro Detroit we're all familiar with from the Detroit Catholic League, Alex Malzone, quarterback from Birmingham, Brother Rice. He was a 3-star kid, mysteriously got bumped up to 4 stars recently, I think, by Rivals, not long after he committed.
Yeah, he was when he committed, he was only a 4-star on Scout, and Rivals, when they updated their rankings last week, immediately gave him a bump, and they've been hinting at that for a while, actually, because Malzone's been he performed very well when he had his throwing session for the various college coaches he was auditioning for, including Doug Nussmeier. And he's also been quite good on the camp circuit. And the questions have never been about his ability to perform in a game in terms of his record at Brother Rice, jumping in as a sophomore and kind of stealing time from a senior quarterback, and then eventually being sort of the main, splitting staffs, but essentially being the main guy who led him to the state title as a sophomore through the year. Had a great game in the state title game, and then last year took over the reins full time and led him to Brother Rice to their third straight state title, and the second straight with him as the quarterback. There's certainly not any questions about what he can accomplish on the field, and his football acumen, his knowledge, his ability to pick up an offense quickly, which was one of the reasons he was able to get on the field early. He's got all of that, and then the question was, okay, how's his arm strength, and how does he look in a camp setting? Is he a college quarterback? Because he is a shade under 6'2", so he's not the prototype pocket passer, at least in terms of his size, but pretty much all the camp accounts have said that not only is his arm strength adequate, it's actually quite good. And more what shows up on film that ends up getting people concerned is the fact that he does actually a very nice job of changing up the speed on his throws to make his passes more catchable, to make sure he's leading wideouts the right way. I was impressed by his film. I was skeptical early on because you hear 3-star in-state guy and you start to think that maybe that guy's getting more of a token offer as a secondary choice than a person who's auditioning along with a bunch of national level prospects and actually being more impressive. But with Malzone, I'd expect him to be a full-on 4-star by the end of this recruiting cycle. He's already halfway there, and he's been very, very impressive this camp season. From all the reports out there, he did well at the Rivals camp. He's doing well at the Midwest 7-on-7 this past weekend. I think he's a solid pickup and also brings something to the class that they haven't really had in this class yet, which is that guy like Michael Ferns and Wilton Spade a year ago, or Shane Morris 2 years ago, who's going to take on the recruiting aspect of helping get a class together as a commit, where he's already been very active. He just showed up today in an article on Chris Clark, where Clark was talking about players he'd want to play with, and Clark's one of the best tight ends in the country and has Michigan as his leader, and he was saying he'd be okay catching passes from Alex Malzone. So they've got a quarterback who's not only a guy who's a potential starter down the road, but somebody who's going to help kind of kickstart this class getting together, I think. And I'd expect we're going to see a lot of action coming up in the next couple months. It has been a little quiet so far, but I think he's going to be a guy who helps get the class really in gear.
Well, always good. Four-star quarterback, local kid Alex Malzone and Darren Kirkland Jr. out of the Indianapolis area, the two latest commits. Let's backtrack and look at the other guys that we have verbals from so far in the class of 2015, Ace. Andrew David, we're bringing in a kicker. You know, kickers, I guess, you really have to be off the charts to get much of a star rating. He's a two-star kid, 5'8", 170, but he's supposed to be very accurate.
Yeah, I mean, and in terms of kicker rankings, he's right up there. Some places have him as the number one kicker. Some places, kind of there's general consensus that he's within the top 5 or so kickers in the country. And at that point, yeah, anytime you're offering a scholarship to a kicker, they better be a good one. And by all accounts, Andrew David's quite a good kicker. Did well at Massillon, and it's nice to get a kicker who's from a school where they care about high school football a whole heck of a lot. So he's got, you know, you don't tend to think of kicking in high school as necessarily being high pressure, but he's been thrown into some high pressure situations down there, I'm sure. And they've got a high school stadium that outstrips some college stadiums in terms of noise at this point. So it's nice to get a guy who's both relatively polished for a high school kicking prospect and also has some experience playing in front of some decently sized and very passionate crowds. So hopefully the mental aspect won't be too tough on him, even at the next level when he's obviously going to be playing in front of 110,000 or so. But you know, when you can get a guy, if you're going to spend a scholarship on a kicker, get one of the top guys in the country isn't a bad way to go with it.
Well, in our verbal commits in this class, we have two DBs, Ace. The first one is Tyree, I don't know if it's Kinnell or Cannell, 6 foot, 190 pounder. He's a 4-star defensive back too.
Yeah, Cannell has been a very interesting prospect to follow because Michigan recruited him as a safety. They're kind of standing by that's going to be his position, but he keeps showing up to all these camps, and they talk about how he can cover like a corner. So at worst, it seems like Michigan picked up a safety with very good coverage skills. And if they do need to roll him down and play corner, it seems like he might have a little bit of positional versatility. And at 6 foot 190, he could definitely play either safety or corner. He's got that build. And apparently flips his hips like a cornerback. So that's one thing that usually separates the corners from the safeties. And it seems like athletically he doesn't have the shortcomings that you might expect from somebody who's getting pegged as a safety early on instead of a potential corner. And he's also shown an ability on film to come down and play against the run, big hits near the line of scrimmage. He's been kind of hanging out in the top 200 range for a while now overall as a prospect. So he's a really solid player. Been committed in the class for a while, almost as long as Crawford had been, unfortunately. And I think he was an excellent pickup at the time, and it seems since then that that's only grown in terms of how he's being looked at in the eyes of the scouts. So that was a pretty solid player to add to the class.
Well, the other DB, pretty much in the same size range, 6'1", 188, Garrett Taylor, and a 4-star, another good-looking kid.
Yeah, Taylor. I mean, he's been climbing up the rankings. He's within the top 100 on most places, and I believe on ESPN he's even within the top 50. He's another guy in the line of bigger cornerbacks that Michigan has been recruiting the last few years, where it's obvious they're trying to add size on the outside. Like you said, Taylor's right around the same size as Cannell. He's 6'1", 188. He's actually a little bit taller. So he's got the physical presence to be able to get up at the line of scrimmage and jam on the outside, which is something that was being emphasized a lot in I don't know if I want to call it a spring game, but whatever they were playing in April in Michigan Stadium, that kind of looks like a game. But there's definitely been an emphasis on getting corners who can come up and press more. it frees up your defense to do a whole lot. And Taylor's got both the athletic ability and the size to be able to get up and play that physical style of defense while still showing off excellent cover skills. And he also came down to Michigan and Stanford, and when you got a guy making a decision between those two schools, you can usually be pretty confident that he's going to stick around and fare relatively well academically too. So that's always a nice addition when the guy's already a top 100 football prospect.
The last of our 6 commits so far in this class of 2015 is a name we're all familiar with. He's a legacy, John Runyon Jr., offensive lineman. He's a 3-star right now, 6'4", 250 pounds. Your take on him, Ace?
The big question with Runyon, he's still a little small. He's about 275 pounds, and at 6'4", he might. Most people project him to the inside right now, probably as a guard. And the question there is whether he's going to be able to play with proper leverage and develop the strength required to be able to play on the inside, and that's not uncommon for a high school offensive lineman. There's a lot of projection you got to do there because of the amount these guys need to develop physically once they get into college. So with Runyon, his technique is solid. He's got nice feet. He can really move as an offensive lineman, which if you can get him at guard and get him pulling well and that seems like something he should be able to do and adapt to relatively early on. And then the question is more how well he holds up at the point of attack. And I think, it's tough to project from here. So, and the recruiting services very much reflect that in terms of they've given him 3 stars because the talent is obviously there. The technical ability is showing up a fair amount. But there are questions about his size and strength, and until he kind of answers those questions, we'll see what kind of performance he has as a senior on the field. But because he's a little bit of a tweener in terms of might not be able to play tackle at the college level, or at least won't be an ideally sized tackle at the college level, he'll probably stay in that 3-star range, but plenty of offensive linemen have come in. The 3 stars tend to be the relative standard. So, and for an interior guy, he could be solid if he gets the strength aspect. He's definitely got the mobility to do fine as a pulling guard, or if he gets the strength holding up at the point of attack.
Well, we're doing our May recruiting update, and our guest today is Ace Anbender, staff writer and recruiting analyst at MGoBlog. So those, Ace, are the 6 commits that we have so far, soft verbals. Michigan recently offered Kengara Daniel from Raleigh, North Carolina, Millbrook High School, defensive end. What can you tell us about this kid?
Daniel's kind of, he's a 3-star, weak side defensive end. He seems like a guy who's better than his ratings suggest. He's got Alabama and Florida State offers, which is not something you tend, and an offer from Miami, which is not something you tend to see from a relatively unheralded 3-star. So he's somebody who's kind of rising up a little bit late on the recruiting radar. Only one of the 4 services has actually given him a rating thus far. So it seems like a guy who's good to get in on for Michigan right now because their weak side defensive end commits. Keyshawn Lucier South is the big time name that they seem to have the best chance at. Borderline 5-star out of California. But it's always tough to pull those California prospects out of the West Coast, even though he's called Michigan his dream school before. A lot of people also have him pegged for UCLA. And then the other main weak side defensive end they're going after is Jay Sean Cornell out of Minnesota. But Notre Dame or Michigan State may be, in fact, Michigan State has been stated as his leader. And Notre Dame is also serious competition because they have deep connections to his school. So with Michigan kind of needing to start looking at some other weak side defensive end options, get some offers out there so if they end up in a situation where they swing and miss at the big time guys, that they have some backup plans. A guy with an Alabama offer is certainly a decent backup plan, I would say. So that seems to be what they're going for here with Daniel.
Well, we never know. We have the 6 verbals right now, a lot of offers out there, and I know there's no rhyme or reason for when these kids decide to commit. But do we expect more commits to this class of 2015, before this coming season actually gets underway?
Absolutely. I mentioned Chris Clark earlier, and he's somebody who seems like he could drop to Michigan pretty soon. He says he's announcing at the opening, which I believe is in early to mid-July. And at this point, if he were to make a choice, most people have got him pegged for Michigan. It seemed like it might come down to Michigan and Ohio State after Clark decommitted from North Carolina. He's set up a return unofficial visit to Michigan that's coming up relatively soon, and has discussed it but hasn't set up a visit to Ohio State. And when he made his visits to Michigan and Ohio State around the same time earlier this spring, he came away saying Michigan was his leader and Ohio State was the other school really pushing them. So it looks good for Michigan right now. Clark's ranked pretty much universally as a top 5 tight end in the country, and at least one site has him as the number 1. So that would obviously be a huge pickup. And he's a prospect who's going to make his decision in July. So there's at least one player to look forward to there. Michigan's got an offensive lineman that they're in on, Grant Newsom, a 4-star, who's looks like he's going to come down either Michigan or Penn State. And we'll see. I'm not sure what his timeline is, but he's narrowed things down basically to those 2 schools at this point. So there are definitely some prospects out there, and with summer, once you get the ball rolling on a couple of commits, stuff can really start to pick up in a hurry. I know it wasn't during the summer, but a couple Februarys ago, when they picked up 8 commitments in one weekend, that wasn't a planned thing. That was just kind of how the recruiting momentum goes, where these guys all get on campus and they're all talking to each other, and sometimes all it takes is 1 or 2 key guys to drop to a school, and a lot of other dominoes kind of fall in line. So we'll see. I think, I know this staff likes to have most of their recruiting class wrapped up before the season starts. I think they'll be creeping towards double digits, if not above it, by the time the season starts again this year. They've got a couple prospects lined up who seem like they're decent bets to commit relatively early on, and enough of these recruits, especially these days, seem to tire of the process and want to get it over with before their senior season starts, that a lot of guys start dropping in August just so they don't have recruiting become a distraction when it's time to actually hit the field for their senior year. So we'll see. I think we'll still get some action this summer.
So if we're in double digits when the season kicks off, that doesn't leave a lot of scholarships to give out in this class. Are we still looking or expecting 16 to 20 scholarships as far as the numbers in this class?
That's right around the range. I think on our depth chart on MGoBlog, our scholarship count, we've got it at, I believe it's either 15 or 16 open scholarships, but yeah, we've got it at 16. That's without the expectation, and usually a pretty safe one, that there will be a little bit of attrition, whether from fifth-year seniors who don't get renewed for their 5th year, or guys transferring out of the program. Hoke's been doing a remarkable job at not having the latter happen, but eventually you'd think, especially with the strength of the 2013 and 2014 classes and the 2012 class, and those guys starting to take playing time away from upperclassmen, and some of the younger guys taking playing time away from some of the highly regarded recruits that had come a couple years earlier. I think there are going to be more playing time related transfers, whereas when Hoke was in the program the first couple of years, there was sort of, with the coaching transition, ample playing time to go around for the young guys. So I think now that they're recruiting guys who sort of expected to be hit the field relatively early in their Michigan careers, when that doesn't happen for some of those guys, I think you'll see a few start to look around. And I think this class, it's still going to be relatively small. I mean, even if they have 5 transfers, that's only a 21-person class or so. But it'll be bigger than the 15 or 16 that the Sturch scholarship count has it pegged at right now. So they'll have some room to fill it out.
Well, one last question for you, Ace. We've already taken a look at the 6 commits that we have so far in the class of 2015 and some other possibilities. But one kid that's not in the class of 2015, but we're hearing that Oregon quarterback transfer, Jake Rodriguez, has Michigan on his list. Do you see Michigan being that interested in bringing in another quarterback right now?
I'd be surprised. It seems like he's leaning towards the West Coast. And in fact, it looks like there are some rumors out there that he has, in fact, chosen San Diego State. I'm not sure how much veracity those have, but I think it would have been a bit of an issue, I think, with the quarterbacks on the current roster. I know Michigan's coaches want to add some depth because they didn't take a quarterback in that 2012 class, and that seems, I mean, it's been obvious in retrospect that was probably a mistake, considering they had to throw true freshman Shane Morris out there last year when Devin Gardner got hurt, instead of being able to give him a red shirt. But I think at this point they just need to move forward with the quarterback situation that they've got. They've been able to fill in quarterbacks in each of the classes since, and adding a guy who, I mean, Rodriguez is transferring because he wasn't able to crack. He wasn't able to win the backup job at Oregon. It wasn't just that he wasn't able to win the starting job. He was slated in as their number 3 quarterback. And while Oregon's got a lot of talent, Michigan also has a pretty solid amount of talent at quarterback right now. So, adding a little depth would have been nice, but I think in general, at this point, Michigan's moving forward. Morris looks like he's got all the ability you would need in a guy who can start for 2 years once Gardner's gone. So I don't really see a need to add a quarterback right now, as opposed to just continuing to recruit those guys and making sure you get one quality option in every year, which seems to be the plan. So we'll see. I think Rodriguez ends up elsewhere. But it is interesting that they seem to throw their hat in the ring for him at the very least. It does say something about their possible worries about depth. Hopefully not, but I think they should feel pretty fine with Gardner and Morris and Spake coming in as an early enrollee if things actually get dire. But I was a little surprised to see Michigan's name pop up there, especially for a transfer, a guy who might have to sit out a year.
Yeah, and I just wondered when I saw the story, did that come from Rodriguez or was that a Michigan source? Because it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's never easy to tell, and a prospect or a player can say, I have interest from this school, and it might have just been, a cursory phone call just to see what was going on. Michigan may have been monitoring the situation. They may have been interested. We're not entirely sure, but I think if they really wanted the kid, they probably would have made a harder push. And it, like you said, it just didn't really make total sense when that started flying around that would happen. I don't think Michigan's got a really dire situation at quarterback. If they were going to take a transfer, I think last year was the year to do it.
Well, there you go, Michigan fans. Our recruiting fix for the month of May. With us today has been Ace Anbender, staff writer and recruiting analyst at MGoBlog. Don't forget to check out Ace at MGoBlog. As always, it's been a pleasure, Ace, and we look forward to the next time.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me on.
2 former Wolverines named last week to the NBA All-Rookie team, and the season comes to an end for Michigan baseball in the Big Ten tournament. That and more coming up on Wolverine Quick Hits as we wrap it up for another week here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, former University of Michigan players Trey Burke of the Utah Jazz and Tim Hardaway Jr. of the New York Knicks were named to the NBA All-Rookie First Team last Thursday following the announcement from the league. The duo becomes the first Wolverines to earn the NBA accolade in 16 years. Joining Burke and Hardaway Jr. on the first team included Michael Carter Williams of Philadelphia, Victor Oladipo of Orlando, and Mason Plumlee from Brooklyn. So congratulations to Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway Jr., first team NBA All-Rookie Squad. The University of Michigan baseball team allowed 5 Nebraska runs in the bottom of the 6th as the Cornhuskers knocked the Wolverines out of the Big Ten tournament with a 6-1 win on Saturday afternoon at TD Ameritrade Park. Michigan ended its season with a 30-29-1 record. Freshman Keith Lehman and Nebraska's Kyle Cubitt traded zeros for the first 3 innings, but the Huskers put up a run in the bottom of the 4th. Lehman walked Pat Kelly and Blake Headley with 1 out. He got Austin Darby to fly out, but Tanner Lubach singled up the middle to bring in Kelly. Nebraska scored 5 runs in the bottom of the 6th. Pat Kelly doubled with 1 out and moved to third on Headley's bloop single. Darby brought in a run with a double in the gap to right field. Nebraska loaded the bases on a hit by pitch and brought in 2 more runs on back-to-back walks. An infield single from Jake Plaschik scored Nebraska's 4th run of the inning, and a walk to Michael Pritchard made it 6-0 Huskers. Michigan scored its run in the top of the 9th. Sophomore Travis Mazes was hit by a pitch to open the frame. He moved to second on a wild pitch and sprinted to third on classmate Jacob Cronenworth's flyout to right. Junior Jackson Glines brought in Mazes with a sacrifice fly to right. Cronenworth had 2 of Michigan's 3 hits on the day. Nebraska's Kyle Cubitt earned the win, pitching 8.2 innings and striking out 6, while allowing 3 hits and a run and a pair of walks. Lehman was tagged with the loss. He struck out a pair and allowed 4 hits and 2 runs with 2 walks. The Wolverines graduate 5 seniors from the 2014 roster. Michigan ended in a tie for 4th in the Big Ten regular season and was one of the 4 last teams remaining in the Big Ten tournament. So again, the season comes to a conclusion in the Big Ten tournament, and the Wolverines again had an overall record of 30 wins, 29 losses, and 1 tie. Now would be a great time to visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for membership. You'll get emails when a story is published and gain access to our very busy message board, where Wolverine fans gather to discuss all topics maize and blue. I know football season is 3 months away. All that means is we'll be talking about it nonstop for the next 3 months at GBM Wolverine. So don't be left out of the Wolverine loop this summer. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for free membership today. Our show app is available from iTunes, the Android store, at Amazon.com, and the Windows 8 App Store. We're also on the roster of 2 great apps, and they're free: Stitcher Radio On Demand and TuneIn Radio. You can also find us on YouTube. If you listen on your laptop or desktop, you can sign up for free weekly delivery from iTunes. So take the Michigan Man podcast with you wherever you go this summer. It's never been easier to find us. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. As long as the topic is maize and blue, we invite you to tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and then record your thoughts for use on an upcoming show. You can email us anytime at the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com or the Michigan Man Podcast at outlook.com. So come on, Wolverine Nation, let me know you're out there. Give us a call or drop us an email. Thanks again to my guest this week, recruiting analyst Ace Anbender from MGoBlog. You can follow Ace daily at www.mgoblog.com. Again, we're on our summer schedule of 2 shows a month until August, when we return to weekly programming. That means we'll be with you next on June 11th. We have some great guests lined up in June, so mark it on your calendar, and we hope to have you back here. Until then, I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. We'll see you right back here in 2 weeks. So take care, enjoy the great weather, we hope, and as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!